Merlin and eBird are two of my favorite digital birding tools, and for this video I put together several of my tutorials on how to take full advantage of them. You'll learn how to use the Merlin Bird ID app, as well as everything inside of eBird, whether that's how to submit a picture, how to submit your first checklist, or how to take full advantage of the Explore tab, which personally is my favorite part. I've put timestamps on this video too, so you can skip around to the different tutorials. If you have any questions about eBird or Merlin, feel free to put those in the comment section below, and I'd be happy to get back with you as soon as possible. If you're looking for a full tutorial on how to use Merlin Bird ID, stick around because I've been using Merlin for almost 5 years now, and in this video I'm going to show you everything that I found inside of this app. So once you open up the app, the very first thing that you're going to see is your bird of the day. And this is a fairly new update that they just released, but basically every day it picks one bird that is fairly common in your area to just give you a suggestion for what to go look for when you go out birding. And once you've found your bird of the day, it'll come up with a little check mark. And then if you want to, you can share it with people. After that, there's step-by-step ID, so if you see a bird and you don't know what it is, Merlin can help you figure that out. So we'll go ahead and do Waco, Texas for a location, do it for today, and then the next thing that you're going to have to put in is the approximate size of the bird. So we'll go ahead and go with sparrow-sized or smaller, pick what colors it was, and then the activity that the bird was doing. And then it's going to give you a whole list of possible birds that you may have seen. And so you can go through that list and see if any of those look like the bird that you saw. And if you want to get a little closer and maybe find some more information out about that bird, look at a couple different pictures of it, read a description about what it looks like, where it's found, stuff like that. And then you can listen to some sounds from that bird, and then you can also see their range map. After you do this, you can report the bird with eBird. That'll open up eBird Mobile. I already have it downloaded on this iPad, so it's going to open up that. Or there's also a setting that you can just report it with Merlin. So go ahead and go out of this, and then the next thing that we have, and this is by far what I use this app the most often for, and that is sound ID. So it will listen to birds sing and then try to figure out exactly what bird is singing, and I found that it's very accurate. It does occasionally make some mistakes, especially with similar sounding birds, or if it can't hear the bird very well. But the technology keeps getting better and better, and is definitely a lot better than what it was a couple years ago. You can also do photo ID, so if you have a photo of a bird and you're not sure what it is, it'll basically do about the same thing as step-by-step ID. It'll just give you a whole list of birds that the photo could resemble. After that, we've got My Sound Recordings, which is just from the Sound ID tool. If you were to save a recording, this is where it would be later on if you want to export that recording to a device to edit it and then maybe upload it to the Macaulay library, or just replay that recording and listen to the bird again if you're trying to make an identification. So that's all there is on the Home tab. Next we'll go to Explore. First we'll go ahead and do likely birds. So we'll put in our location, what date we want to pull from. For now we'll just do today, and then you can sort by the most likely birds. You can sort by family. You can sort by family, and then inside of families it'll sort by which is most likely. That's the one that I always do. And then if you want to, you can go from alphabetic. Then you can also sort alphabetically if you want to do that. And then you can also hide birds that are on your life list, and we'll get to a little bit more of how it knows your life list in a little bit. So we'll go ahead and show all the birds. And then here on the right, we have these green icons, and that's just a quick way to sort through different families. So if we want to get to the hawks quickly, tap on the hawk, and then it'll take us to vultures, hawks, and allies. And then if we want to do wood warblers, go to this little bird on a branch, get to wood warblers quickly. And then if we want to do blackbirds, go down to the bottom one. So that's just a quick way to sort through the families. You can also just scroll through the whole thing if you want. But as far as the actual birds in here go, the blue check mark is whether or not you have it on your life list. The yellow circle here is indicating that that bird is uncommon. It's not quite rare, but it's not super common either. And then a red dot would mean that it is considered rare. However, if it has a red dot in Merlin, that does not mean that it's going to be considered rare in eBird. We also have a bar chart on here that's showing us when a certain bird is most likely. And then we've got the months of the year on there. So we can see belted kingfishers are least likely to be found in the summer and then more common in the fall and winter. If a bird is not on your life list, then it's just not going to have that blue check mark. So to continue in the Explorer area, we can just show all installed birds for any pack. We'll get to how to install a pack in a little bit. So if I wanted to just pick a certain pack, I can do that right here. And then I can also hide birds that are on my life list. This is actually a fairly new feature. Before, you could only hide birds on your life list if you were searching in the likely birds area. Now you can hide all the birds that are in a pack that are not on your life list. So if you just wanted to see those, we can do that this way. Next up, we'll go to life list. And I have it pulling from my eBird life list right now, just links to your Cornell Lab account. If you were to report a bird on Merlin, it would also show up in here. So you can search birds on your life list here, or just scroll through it. It shows you what location you saw that bird at and then what date too. You can sort by family, newest seen first or oldest first. And so moving on to settings, you can link your Cornell Lab account here at the very top. For bird packs, we go and click on that. We can see nearby packs based on our current location and all the packs we have installed. If you want to delete a pack, you just swipe to the left. Then we can also see all packs, and then we can search for packs too. So if I wanted, let's say, birds of the Rocky Mountains, just search Rocky Mountains, and then that would come up. If we go back in settings, you can change which language you want the bird's common names to be displayed in, whether or not you want the Latin names to also be displayed. You can also have a notification to send you a daily reminder every morning of what your bird of the day is, if you would like that. And then some sound ID. I would like to have it move live matches up to the top, because then you can just see very quickly what bird you're hearing right away. And then you can also see all the birds that are supported in Sound ID. They're working really hard to get it to expand into as many birds as they can, but right now all they've got is 1,382, which covers most of the United States. I'm not exactly sure what their international coverage is, but judging by how many species this is, I think it's pretty good. You can also change how you would like to save your sightings. If you're using eBird, I would recommend doing that. If you don't have an eBird account yet, I'll link my eBird tutorial in the video description below if you'd like to check that out. I highly recommend eBird. If you're doing some more serious birding, definitely get eBird. It's a lot easier to submit birds in eBird when compared to Merlin. But for now, if you'd like to, you can just save your sightings using Merlin. Today, I'm going to show you exactly how to use eBird, even if you know nothing about this incredible birding website, because I'm going to walk you through the 3 main parts of eBird and show you exactly how to use them. If you don't already have an eBird account, go ahead and click on this green Get Started button, and then you'll have to create a Cornell Lab account. I already have an account, so we'll go ahead and click Sign In. And right away on this homepage, you're going to see all of your eBird stats, such as species observed or complete checklists, how many species you've uploaded a picture of. And if we go down here, we can see some recent eBird news, such as the eBirder of the Month challenge, and then some previous winners of the eBirder of the Month, and then some eBird stats for the current month. You can also explore some regions and species from right here. The best place to do this, though, is in the Explore tab, which we'll be getting at in a minute. You can see some top photos and some top audio just from the past couple days, as well as some rarities. I really don't pay any attention to this stuff when I'm using eBird. I always go to the Explore tab, which we'll get to in a little bit. And as you can see, I already have quite a few locations created from all of the eBird checklists that I've submitted. You can manage your locations right here if you want to delete a location or rename one. But if you're looking to submit one online, but if you don't have the app downloaded, don't worry, because it really isn't that hard to get. But if you don't have the app downloaded, don't worry, because it really isn't that hard to create a location in here. So first, what we're going to do is we're just going to type in, so let's say we were birding in the Rio Grande Valley. So we'll go ahead and type in Cameron County. And then what we can do is look at all of the different hotspots that have been created for Cameron County. So let's say we were birding here at the Palo Alto battlefield. And so as you can see, there are a lot of different hotspots. You'll just have to find the specific place that you were birding at. You can also enter in its address or name. And then these red icons here are public birding hotspots, while the blue ones are personal locations that I have already created. So once we've got our location, we can then hit continue. And then we'll go ahead and put in the observation date and then the observation type. eBird does a pretty good job explaining the different observation types. And if you're not sure exactly what observation type to get, you can go ahead and click on these more info tabs right here. And once you read through those, you should probably have a pretty good idea of what observation type to go with. Then you also want to put in the duration of the entire time that you were birding, as well as your party size. If you want to add some checklist comments, you can go ahead and put those in here. This is not the last time that you're going to be able to do that, though. Once you submit the checklist, you can also put in some checklist comments. We'll go ahead and hit continue, and then we'll see a whole list of species. And if you have a public hotspot selected, it's going to give you the most frequent species. It's going to put them up front. And then gradually, as birds get rarer, they're going to be farther down on the list. So once we fill out that, once we get our species numbers filled out, and so when you're filling out species numbers, you want to make sure that you give an accurate number of the birds that you actually saw. If you have an estimate of the birds that you saw, you can go and put that in there, and then just go to add details and add some checklist comment, and then just add some comments that say that this is an estimate and not an actual count. You can also add some extra data, such as breeding codes, so like if you saw a vermilion flycatcher nest with young, you can put that in there. And also the age and stuff of a bird. So once you've got all that done, so there's also a few more things here, like if we want to change the date or the location, we can do that right up here at the very top. If a species is not shown on this checklist, we can go ahead and add it right here. Most of the time, though, unless you're dealing with very, very rare birds, the species is going to be on your checklist. We can also group by most likely, or if we wanted to group in taxonomic order, we can go ahead and do that. Taxonomic or alphabetical, several ways to do it. I always have grouped by most likely because when you're out birding, you are probably going to see the most likely birds, and so that just makes submitting a checklist just a little bit easier. Here's some keyboard shortcuts that you can do for submitting a checklist. Once we're done with all that, we need to say whether or not it is a complete checklist of all the birds you're able to identify. So go ahead and hit yes, and then we will submit. And so once we submit a checklist, we can then review all the information and see if it is correct. And we can also submit another one for the same location and date, same location, same area and date, where it'll just take us back to that map that we saw earlier. And we can also submit a checklist for a different location at a different date. We can edit our checklist comments right here. And if we wanted to share the checklist with another eBirder, we can go ahead and do that right here. If you wanted to add some media, such as photos or audio, you can go ahead and click this green button right here. And then you'll just drag and drop your pictures or audio right on here, and then click done. If you need to remove this particular species, go ahead and hit this trash can right here, and then that will remove it. Or you can also go to edit species and remove it that way. And if you want to delete a checklist, you can go into checklist tools and then scroll all the way down to the bottom and click on delete. There's also a few more things you can do here in checklist tools. The next tab is the explore tab, and this is personally my favorite tool in eBird, as there's a lot of stuff to do in here. So we can explore any bird species in the world by typing in its name in the Explore Species tab. So let's go ahead and do oak titmouse. So there's several ways we can do it. As you can see, it'll come up with a species as you're typing it. You can also do the 4-letter abbreviation code, which is a 4-letter code. In the case of the oak titmouse, it would be OATI. The OA for oak and the TI for titmouse. And so you can get it that way. If you were to type in its Latin name, it would also come up. And so once we've got the bird pulled up, we can go through several different photos of the bird. We can also listen to some audio recordings right here. And then we have an identification description right here. You can also see a range map of eBird site. And this range map down here is powered by actual eBird sightings of the bird that you're looking at. You can switch to satellite if you want to. And then the statistics over here, you're going to have your statistics. So how many times you've seen that bird and how many observations you have with photos and with audio. And then also eBird statistics. And if we choose a region, we can actually see the weekly bar chart. So let's go ahead and type in California. Once we've got that typed in, it will populate a weekly bar chart of how likely that bird is. And since it's a year-round resident, it's going to be pretty likely. And since it's a year-round resident, we're not going to see a whole lot of change. But if this bird were to migrate south in the winter, you would notice that it is less frequently seen in the winter months. We also have some top photos of this bird that you can look at in case you're trying to confirm an identification, and then some top audio and top videos that you can watch. We can arrow through up here at the very top right to similar species in that bird's family that are closely related to it. And so next we have the Explore Regions area. And so you can type in any state, county, or country in the world, and then go ahead and have a look at the different birds that have been reported in that area. So go ahead and type in Texas, and there's a lot of stuff in this Explore Regions area. It's quite helpful for tracking down specific birds that you want to see, as well as getting an idea of what birds are found in any given area. So we can toggle this front area right here by eBirding this month or eBirding this year. And then we can see the newest species that have been seen in this given region for this year. If we do eBirding this month, however, a fairly new update is the community targets. And these are birds that have not been seen in this area, but are most likely to be seen. Since it's a state there, and since this is Texas, the community targets are actually all rare. These are all rare birds, as all the resident birds have been seen already this month. And the bigger the region, usually the rarer the birds are in community targets, especially when you get towards the end of the month, which is when I'm recording this. If you were to click on one of these, it would just take you to the most recent checklist that has that bird on it. We can see some recent photos from the past week of birds that have been seen in this area, as well as some recent checklists. Also, a fairly new update is the recent trip reports, where you can now see people's trip reports from this region. So if you click on this, you're going to see a list of all the birds that people saw on their trip. And once we get to the My eBird section, I'll tell you how to make a trip report. Next up, we have some recent audio recordings that have been uploaded in the past 7 days, as well as some rarities that have been seen in this area. We'll get to the actual rare bird alert in a little bit, but for now, all these rarities are, but for now, the only way to see a rare bird in this rarities section right here is if a picture has been uploaded to it. Next up, we've got subregions, where you can see how many checklists have been submitted in that subregion for a given time period, as well as how many species have been seen inside of these subregions. And so in this case, since Texas is a state, we have the different counties that are inside of Texas. We can also see hotspot leaders, so you can see how many species have been seen at particular hotspots, well, especially the top hotspots, and the different checklist leaders. We also have the top eBirders. For a month, you can't see past 10, but for a year, there is the top 100. We can look at the bird list for the region, so we can see last observed, first observed, which is when a bird has first been seen or first eBirded in a particular area, and then high counts. So for example, for these red-crowned Amazons, 571 is the highest count that has ever been reported on eBird in Texas. We can go to recent checklists down here and see about the most recent 200 checklists or so. We can see a few more trip reports here. Unfortunately, you can't see any more trip reports than what is right here, so that's a little bit limiting. We can also see all the subregions right here, and if we keep going down the line, we can see the top 100 hotspots and then the top eBirders. We can toggle it between all years, this year, and this month, and there's actually a way to pick a specific year. So like if I want to see 2023, I can go to another part in the Explore tab, which we'll get to in a minute. And then there's also the illustrated checklist. And so this is just a checklist of all the birds that have been seen in a given region and whether or not those species have been reported with photos and audio. And it also tells you which ones need photos and which ones need audio. You can also see all of your stats for this region. So if we were to click on this My eBird part, it would take us to my stats for this area automatically. I don't really do this very often because I just go to My eBird first, and then if I want to search a region, I just type it in up here. So we can see my life list and then some target species, needs alerts, and then all the checklists that I've submitted. So let's go ahead and keep going on the Explore tab. After region, we can also search for National Wildlife Refuges on the Explore tab. Just put in any name of a National Wildlife Refuge there, as well as KBAs and IBAs. Then if you want to search for some major regions like the whole world, the Western Hemisphere, or like the lower 48 states, you can go and do that right here. And that's going to be under major regions. You can't actually search that under just the regular regions tab. Next up, we have the species maps. This is by far probably what I use the most when trying to find a specific species. You can just search any species in the world. We'll go ahead and keep going with the oak titmouse. So once we type that in, it'll give us a list of all the sightings of a particular bird species. We can go over here, and if we want to see just locations with photos, audio, or video, we can go ahead and tap that. And so if we click on this show points sooner right here, on the right side, it'll show the points just a little bit earlier than if it's not checked, but it maxes out at 2,000 checklist points. We can also exclude escapees, so like if we're looking for ring-necked pheasants and we wanted to exclude the escaped birds that have been reported as escaped, then we can go ahead and check that. And that'll get rid of those. And so once you zoom in to a particular location, you'll see that some of these are lighting up as red. And that means that a bird has been reported at that pin in the last 30 days. And the blue ones are older than 30 days. So if we go and click on that pin, this one's a hotspot. And so it'll just give us a list of all the eBird checklists that have the oak titmouse on it. Then we can click on these and see checklist comments, such as if the person was giving some details as to where this bird can be found. as well as other species that have been seen there. You can also look at date and effort and stuff like that. And then if you wanted to get directions to go to that place, go and click on this little map icon right here, and then that'll take you right to Google Maps. And so that's pretty helpful. There is a few more things in here, like we can search by place name or address. If we're looking for a specific location, we can also search by date if you want just birds that have been reported from March to May. And we can also tag on the past 10 years, so that will exclude some older sightings. So that's kind of helpful if you're trying to gauge how likely a specific bird is in an area for like a specific part of the year. And so I've done that several times. So back in the Explorer area, and the next big and probably the second biggest thing that I use in here is the Explorer Hotspots tab. And this is super helpful if you need to find a place to go birding. And so right away, we see a whole map of the world, and then it is color coded as to what areas have more birds. So like as you can see, South America has a lot more birds than the US does because there's a lot more red there. If we click on that, it'll actually tell us how many species have been seen in that area. Then we can also click on view hotspots, and then it'll show us some hotspots in the area. So if I'm looking for a place to bird near Tucson, Arizona, we can go ahead and put in Tucson, and then it'll take us to a map of all the different public hotspots that are in eBird that you can go birding at in Tucson. And so the brighter red the hotspot, the more birds that are going to be seen there. So like for this light blue hotspot right here, only 76 species have been seen there. Versus over here at Sweetwater Wetlands, there's going to be a lot more birds seen there. And so that's why it is a brighter red. And so once we click on a hotspot, we can see how many species have been seen there total and how many complete checklists have been submitted there. You can also filter by current year or specific months if you wanted to. If I want to see how many birds are in there for all years and then April, we can see which hotspots have the most birds in April. And we can get bar charts of that hotspot. And so this is just kind of a good way to figure out how likely a species is at a given hotspot. And so as we can see, cinnamon teals are very common in the winter, and then they can still be found from May to August, but they're going to be a little bit less likely than they are during the winter. And so bar charts can be really helpful when trying to time your visit to specific bird species. Honestly, I don't use them very much, but they can come in helpful sometimes. We can also see hike counts, and then if we want to get directions on Google Maps to go there right away, we can just go ahead and click on that. And then there's two ways to access this hotspot. You can just click on the title itself, or you can go to view details, and then that'll bring you to a page with a lot of details about that hotspot, such as recently seen species, some recent photos, some recent checklists, and then the top eBirders for that hotspot. And then if we want to go back to the hotspot map in the same area that we were just looking at, go ahead and click over here on the right on the hotspot map icon, and it'll take you right back to the exact same area. And so for the next thing in the Explorer area, we can look at bar charts. You can put in any region and then see how likely a bird is there for that region. Again, I don't use this very often, but it can come in helpful sometimes if you're trying to time your visit to find a specific bird species or look for what bird species is most likely. You can also change the date right here if you wanted to. And then next up is search photos. And in here, you can search for any bird species in the world and search photos. So a couple years ago, I saw what I believed was an American bittern, but I didn't get a very good look at it as it was flushed and I was driving, and so I didn't get a great look at it. But later, I went in here and searched for the American bittern, and then I went over here into filters and searched for photos of the bird flying. Here you can match up some field marks, such as like the black on its wing and how its feet trail behind it and stuff like that. And so when you're researching a bird's ID, this can be kind of helpful. There's a lot more filters that you can filter in here. It's like if you want to see a bird eating, you can do that. The age of the bird, the sex of the bird, some tags such as like whether or not the bird's molting, or if it's in a flock. And then if you're searching for audio, you can search for its song right here, flight song and stuff like that. Next up, we have alerts, and there is a lot of stuff to look at in here. But basically, you can get rare bird alerts for any region. And so let's go ahead and type in Texas again, and we'll just see the birds that eBird considers rare for this region. You can sort by date, location, county, and state. If we wanted to, you can subscribe to this alert, and so that just sends you emails either every hour or every day. We'll go ahead and sort it by date, and then we can hit show all details, and that will automatically show us the checklist comments and then any pictures or audio if there is some. And so I use the rare bird alert quite a bit just to see if there's anything rare in the area. You can also compare your totals with other eBirders. We've got the top 100 for any region. We can search major regions, or we can do Texas again. And you can search by year. Like I was saying earlier, you can change the year. So if we want to go to 2024, we can search there and then see your stats and everybody else's stats for that year. You can also search by complete checklist, and that'll give you the list of the top 100 eBirders for complete checklists in any region. We also have yard totals and patch totals. You can keep a list of all the birds that you've seen in your yard or your local patch, and you can also make different patches. Like I have Texas state parks and national wildlife refuges. Like I've seen 248 species at different national wildlife refuges. We got U.S. national parks as well, and so that's just kind of a fun way to keep track of your sightings for different areas. If you wanted to learn a little bit more about eBird, they've also got an eBird Essentials course. If you don't already have Merlin Bird ID, I highly suggest you download it. It's a free app that works on your phone or iPad and makes bird identification quite a bit easier. You can even identify birds by sound. If you want to check out my full tutorial on Merlin, you can go and click the link in the video description below. And then there's also the photo and sound ID quiz, which I find super fun. You can put in any location that you want. And so like later this year, I'll be going to Banff National Park. And so I can choose a day and then what birds I want to see, like likely or likely and infrequent. And then it'll just generate a list of 20 birds that are found in Banff. And so if you're doing a trip to a place that you're not super familiar with, you can go ahead and do this quiz, and it's a good way to increase your skills. And then the last thing in the Explore tab is the submission map. You can see real time as people submit checklists to eBird. So like you can see 31,000 checklists have been submitted today. And then these white dots are where they have been submitted from. And so the last tab here in eBird is the My eBird. And there's a lot of, and this is all for your personal eBird stats that you've submitted. So we can see my life list is currently at 551 species, how many complete checklists I've submitted, how many species I've submitted audio for, as well as my total ticks. And ticks is basically counted by how many birds you've seen in each state, and then it just adds the whole total together. So like if we go back to Texas again, every time I see a new bird, and so for my Cameron County list, I've seen 240 species of birds there. And so that would be 240 ticks counted towards this total county ticks list right here. We can also see species by year to compare with last year, some recent checklists that I've submitted for this region, and then for the specific month, we can see our totals there. Over here on the left, we've also got how many birds I've seen in this day, as well as checklists that I've submitted for this day. We can manage our checklist here if we need to edit something. You can also do that by going here at this view all. And then there's also, we can manage our locations if we need to delete location or rename a location. And then trip reports right here. We can create trip reports and view my recent trip reports. To create a trip report, go and click that. Go ahead and put in the name, the start date, the end date, and then how you want it to be visible. And then it will create a trip report of all the birds that you have seen for that selected time period. And then if you saw some lifers on your trip, it would also put that right here, right above species observed. You can manage the alerts that you're subscribed to right here. And if you want to import some data from other birding websites, such as iGoTerra, you can do that here. And your contacts right here for other eBirders that you have shared a checklist with. Then you can also look at your profile, which is basically just a visual representation of all the birds that you've seen and checklists that you've reported. And so it's pretty neat. You can just go by county and see how many birds you've seen there. I think it's a lot of fun. Just kind of go through and see which state I've seen the most birds in. As you can see, it goes the lighter the county, the less birds you've seen, and then the darker red, the more birds you've seen there. eBird Mobile makes it so much easier to submit eBird checklists. You can track down target birds and even rarities all inside of this app. And in this video, I'm going to give you a full tutorial on how to submit a checklist, how to use the Explore tab, and how to use the My eBird section of the app. You do need an eBird account in order to submit checklists, which is really easy to create. Just go to ebird.org, make one, and then download the free eBird mobile app. Once you open up the app, this is going to be what you see. You're going to hit the Start Checklist tab, and then if you don't have a bird pack installed yet, you can hit Suggested Packs. Since I'm currently in Colorado right now, we'll install the Colorado pack. And this just gets you a whole list of likely birds that can be found in your state and makes submitting checklists a little bit easier. So once you have your pack installed, you can go ahead and start a checklist. And you can put in your location by tapping this. It'll automatically select what location you're at. Sometimes it's not correct. You can also put in eBird hotspots. So I'm going to put in Cheyenne Mountain State Park. Then it'll get us a list of the most likely birds found in this area. And you can sort it several ways. You can have it sort by which is the most likely, or you can do taxonomic sort. You're going to put it in taxonomic order. I like to do smart sort just because it makes submitting checklists a little bit easier, because it's most likely that you're going to see the most common birds, so it just saves a little bit of time from having to scroll through a little bit longer and go through taxonomic sort that way. So unless you turn this feature off, which you can at the start when you're starting a checklist, it's going to track your distance. If you're just walking one way and then backtracking, eBird does ask you to cut that in half because they just want one-way distance, as it's a little bit more scientifically helpful. If you tap the plus button, it'll do one, and then every time you tap it, it'll add one more. You can remove it here, you can add details about the bird, or you can do a breeding code. If you want to search for birds, you can do that here. You can either type in the full name of the bird, evening grosbeak, and it'll come up, or you can do a 4-letter code, which is just the first 2 letters in each word. So for evening grosbeak, it would be EVGR. EV for the first 2 letters in evening, and GR for the first 2 letters in grosbeak. So that just makes it a little bit easier to find birds quickly, and you could even put in a number. So if you saw 5 evening grosbeaks, you could do 5 EVGR, tap on it, and it automatically adds 5 to evening grosbeak. You could do the same with subtracting. Minus symbol, 5, tap on it, and it'll get rid of it for you too. So that's a neat little way to quickly add totals. If you saw a bunch of them, you could click on it and then just type 200, or you could just do it up here, put 200 in there, and tap on it, and it'll add it. Now, same with the website. If you put in an unusually high count, it's going to come up with a flag, which is just asking you to put in some extra details regarding that observation, since it was unusual. For checklist comments, you can put them in here, or when we're done birding, you can put them in at the end. Right here where it says add checklist comments, it'll come up and you can put checklist comments in that way. You can also change your location here at the end and the observation type. You can also change number of observers here and time that you spent birding or distance. And finally, it'll ask you if this is a complete checklist of the birds you were able to identify, so make sure you answer that. And then once you're done with that, you can submit. Once you submitted a checklist, it's going to appear over in the checklist portion, and if you haven't submitted it yet and just saved it for later, like if you didn't have internet when you were ready to submit it, it'll appear right here, and then you can submit it later. Submitted a checklist. This is synced with eBird Online, so if you were to submit a checklist on eBird's website at ebird.org, it'll also show up down here. And in here you can edit any checklist just by tapping on it and then hitting the plus button, or you could do it up here in the top right. And next is going to be the Explore area. Now this has some features that are similar to the website, but also has some things that the website does not have. So like the website, it shows you a whole group of hotspots, and then you can click on them and see what birds have been seen where. There's also a bar chart here to show you how likely that species is for that hotspot. Filters up here, you can filter for region and time period. And for target species, you can also choose what list you want to pull from. Down here, we can search for hotspots in the area or species. If we search for species, it'll show us a map of all the points that this particular species has been seen in this time period, a lot like the website. If we scroll down, we can see targets, nearby hotspots, when they're visited ones and non-visited ones. And if we click on these targets right here, this is going to take us to ebird.org and automatically get you to the right place. And so that's what all these down here, that is what they do. Next is my eBird section, and here it's going to keep track of all your lists. So if you click on this, you can see what species you've seen and when you saw them. You go out here, click on this arrow in the top right to change the region. So if we want to change it to United States, we can then see my United States list this way. And that's really about all there is in my eBird section. Lastly is settings, where you can change your account. You can edit your bird packs. Whether you want to delete them or install them, you can search for all packs here. You can change which language you want the bird's common names to be in. You can change if you want it to be common name, scientific name, which is Latin, or both of them when you're submitting checklists. You can also turn on showing subspecies. So if you saw a subspecies of a bird and you want to add it to your eBird checklist, you could do it that way. Choose if you want to see distances in miles or kilometers, what portal you want your checklist to be submitted to. In this video, I'm going to show you exactly how to upload photos and audio to eBird. You do not need much tech experience for this. I'm going to make it as simple and easy for you to follow along as possible. In order to upload photos to eBird, you have to first submit a checklist, and if you are submitting checklists on their website, this is what you're going to see right after you hit the submit button. And if you're submitting your checklist through the eBird mobile app, then you're going to have to go online to ebird.org to upload media. So to upload photos or audio, we're going to go over here to this green Add Media button. Once we click it, it's going to take us to an area that looks like this. To upload a picture, you can either drag it straight on to whatever species it is, and it'll upload it that way, or you can go over here to the Add Media button and then select your file that way. Now there are several requirements for when you're uploading a picture. First, it has to be either a JPEG or a PNG file. The way to figure out if you have that or not is to look at the last 3 letters on your file name. If it says GPG or PNG, that's what you want. That means it's either a JPEG or a PNG. If it's a camera RAW file, like straight out of your camera and you're shooting in RAW, then you're going to have to convert it to either a JPEG or a PNG before you can upload it. Another file requirement is it can't be over 20 megabytes, which is a pretty large picture, especially for a JPEG, so you're probably not going to have that problem, but if you do, then you are going to have to size down the file. Once you have your file uploaded, you can then rate it. Here's how I like to think of eBird's rating system. 5 is great, 4 is good, 3 is a decent picture, 2 is a pretty bad picture, maybe it's blurry or the subject is pretty far back in the frame, and 1 is for documentation purposes only. So if you saw a rare bird and you didn't get great pictures, and all the pictures you got were pretty blurry, but you could still tell that it was a rare bird, you can then upload it to eBird so then other people can go confirm it, or just upload it for your documentation purposes. Once you've rated it, you can also put in some notes that are specific to that picture. Like here, I could put in here that this condor is tagged K6. Down here, you can put in whether or not it's a male or female, put in their age, and if you don't know any of that, you can just put in age unknown. If there's any additional species inside of that picture, you can put them in here. Next is behavior tags. It's like if the bird in this picture was eating, you could check that box. That just makes your observations a little bit more useful for research purposes. More tags down here, like if it's just a habitat picture or there's eggs that you took a picture of, whether or not it's a field note, whether or not it's just you took a picture of field notes or a sketch that you made to document a rare bird. If you're taking a picture of a bird's nest and you happen to know what species is nesting there, you could check that nest box right there. And if you're banding birds and you got a picture of a bird in your hand, you could then check the in-hand box. So once you're done with that, go ahead and hit done here, and then if you have any more pictures, you can upload them. After that, once it says that it's saved, you're going to hit done, and now your picture is uploaded to eBird. eBird Status and Trends is where you get to see how your bird sightings help scientists assess bird populations. In this video, I'm going to walk you through everything this feature has to offer, so let's dive in. So to explore eBird Status and Trends, the first thing that you need to do is type in a species name. We'll go with willow flycatcher, and this first map is going to show us willow flycatcher abundance. As you can see over here, the season's timeline. Red is breeding season, blue's non-breeding, and then the different yellows are pre-breeding migratory season and post-breeding migratory season. You can turn these either off or on. We'll just leave them on for now. Then you can select every country that this species has been reported in. So this is just kind of nice to tell, like, generally where a species is at. It also tells you their relative abundance compared to other species. The next part of their status and trends is weekly, where you get to see each week of the year as species either migrate north or south. So we're just going to play this. It's going to show you the abundance. Lighter yellow means less, and darker means more. Then they go back down for the year. So this can help you by zooming in. You can see when a certain species is expected to arrive at your location in the summer, and then when they are expected to depart. The next part in here is the trends, where you get to see their abundance trend, whether it's increasing or declining. Red, of course, means declining, and then the darker the red means more decline. This is just based on eBird reports. This is where your reports help scientists assess bird populations and zoom in to see the actual percentage of decline in this certain area. Scientists can use this to monitor bird populations and see where conservation might be needed. The next part is the range map. As you can see, this is pretty similar to the abundance map. Shows you post-breeding, non-breeding, breeding season. Just when a certain species is expected. As you can see, it nails it down to the dates. It's nice to know when a species is expected for your area. So they have a lot of species in this feature. You can browse all of them. here. By family, total of 2,279 species are in eBird status and trends. Bird checklists are a fun way to keep track of what species you've seen. And in this video, I'm going to show you how to easily make a checklist for any region, local park, or hotspot. So the way that we're going to make this checklist is to go to ebird.org, and if you don't have an account created, go ahead and make one. Come back to the home screen, and then to make a checklist for a region, we're going to go to the Explore tab. Here on the right, we're going to put in any region in the world. We'll start with Texas. Scroll all the way down here to the bottom left and click on Printable Checklist. And right away, it's going to create a checklist of all the birds ever reported to eBird seen in Texas. It's also going to do hybrids, and it's also going to include hybrids like the hybrid between the snow and greater white-fronted goose, domestic types like the domestic goose, and then spuds. So if we want a checklist of birds seen this year in Texas on eBird, you could put in a year, go down to Printable Checklist, and then it's going to change to just species that have been reported on eBird inside of Texas this year. You can also make a checklist for any public hotspot inside of eBird. As far as I know, right now you're not able to make a checklist for a private personal location, but you can for hotspots. So with Santa Ana National Wildlife Refuge, let's go ahead and make a printable checklist of that. Again, same place as the Explore tab, bottom left. And if we want to make a checklist for just this year, we would go through the exact same process. And you can do that for any region or public hotspot inside of eBird.